In a world that is constantly changing, some things were built to remain the same. Imagine a creature that doesn't hide, doesn't flee, and doesn't need to. It is a 3-ton fortress of muscle, bone, and keratin, a living relic from an era when giants ruled the earth. We call it the rhinoceros, but nature knows it as a living tank. For 50 million years, this design has remained virtually unchanged. While other species evolved to be faster, smaller, or more agile, the rhino stayed its course. It is the ultimate proof that when evolution perfects a weapon, it stops innovating. But don't let the slow, deliberate movements fool you. Within this armored shell lies a power so explosive that it can flip a 3-ton vehicle as if it were a toy. But where did this beast come from? To understand the rhino today, we have to travel back to a time when they were even more terrifying than they are now. Long before the rise of humans, the rhino family tree held the title for the largest land mammals to ever walk the planet. Meet the Parasauritherium. Standing 20 feet tall at the shoulder and weighing as much as 5 modern elephants, these were the true titans of the Tertiary period. They had no horns, but their sheer size meant they had no predators. They were the architects of their environment, moving through forests like living mountains. Over millions of years, as the Earth's climate shifted and forests turned to grasslands, the rhino adapted. It traded height for armor. It traded reach for a weapon that could penetrate the toughest hides. The modern rhino is the final, hardened survivor of that colossal lineage. Whether it's the white rhino of the plains or the elusive Jovan rhino of the deep jungles, they all carry the DNA of kings. They are the last of the mega-herbivores, a bridge between the prehistoric past and our modern world. What makes a rhino a tank? It starts with the skin. This isn't just flesh, it's an engineering masterpiece. In some places, a rhino's skin is over 2 inches thick. But it's not just the thickness, it's the structure. Beneath the surface, the skin is reinforced by a complex, cross-hatched lattice of collagen fibers. This creates an organic armor plate that is incredibly tough yet surprisingly flexible. It's built to withstand the jagged thorns of the African bush and the lethal claws of a pride of lions. But this armor has a secret. Despite its rugged appearance, it is incredibly sensitive. A rhino can feel a single fly landing on its back. This sensitivity is why you often see them caked in mud. The mud acts as a secondary layer, a chemical-free sunscreen and a barrier against parasites. But the skin is only the shield. To see the sword, we have to look higher. Mounted directly onto the skull is a weapon that defies the laws of biology. The rhino's horn is one of the most unique structures in the animal kingdom. Unlike the horns of cattle or the antlers of deer, this weapon has no bony core. It is made entirely of keratin, the same protein that makes up your hair and fingernails. But through a process of intense compression and specialized calcium deposits, nature has transformed hair into a lethal spike. It never stops growing. If a rhino breaks its horn in a fight, it simply grows back, inch by inch, year after year. It is a tool for digging, a symbol of status, and a weapon of absolute destruction. When a rhino charges, it focuses all of its 3-ton momentum into the tip of that horn. It is a force that very few things in nature can survive. Yet, as we will see, this magnificent weapon is also a sensory organ, helping the rhino feel vibrations in its environment. But a tank is useless without a targeting system. While we see a gray, dusty giant, the rhino sees a world of complex data. They are often called blind, but that is a dangerous misunderstanding. Their eyes might be weak, but their other senses are tuned to a frequency we can barely comprehend. To understand how this fortress navigates the world, we must look beyond the armor and into the invisible landscape of sound and scent. There is a persistent myth that the rhinoceros is a blind giant, stumbling through the world in a blur of gray. And while it's true that a rhino couldn't recognize a human standing still just 30 feet away, to call them blind is a dangerous mistake. Nature never leaves a warrior unarmed. Evolution has simply shifted the rhino's primary gateway to reality. Where we rely on sight, the rhino relies on a sophisticated biological radar system. They don't see the world in shapes and colors. They hear it in frequencies and smell it in high-definition data. To understand the rhino, you have to stop looking with your eyes and start listening with your soul. Look closely at those ears. They are shaped like acoustic funnels, designed to capture even the faintest vibration from miles away. Unlike human ears, a rhino's ears can rotate 360 degrees independently. One can be locked onto the rustle of a predator in the tall grass behind them, while the other tracks the distant call of a mate across the horizon. This is their early warning system. Long before a lion is in sight, the rhino has already mapped its position. This auditory precision allows them to navigate pitch-black nights with the confidence of a king. But sound is only the beginning. The rhino's true superpower is its nose, a sensory organ so powerful it functions like a biological internet. In the world of the rhinoceros, a pile of dung isn't waste, it's a library. Scientists call these communal dung heaps middens, and they serve as the social media of the savanna. By sniffing these sites, a rhino can download a wealth of information. Who was here, how long ago they left, their age, their health, and even their emotional state. When you see a rhino curl its upper lip, a behavior known as a flamen response, it is using a specialized organ in the roof of its mouth to analyze pheromones. It's a chemical breakdown of the world around them. This scent mapping allows them to know exactly whose territory they are in without ever seeing another living soul. They are architects of an invisible landscape, navigating by a map made of molecules. This sensory data feeds into a body built for explosive action. For a creature of this size, the rhino is terrifyingly fast. From a standstill, they can hit speeds of 35 miles per hour. That's nearly 20 feet per second of raw, unyielding momentum. At this speed, their sensory systems have to work in overdrive. Their feet, equipped with 3 large toes, act as shock absorbers, distributing their massive weight so they can move silently across the plains when they choose to. It is a paradox of nature, a 3-ton tank that can move with the stealth of a cat and the speed of a freight train. But even with these incredible senses, the rhino has a secret ally. The tiny oxpecker birds that live on their backs aren't just there for a free meal. They are an external nervous system. When the bird screams, the rhino reacts. It's a partnership that has lasted for millennia. But as we move deeper into the life of the giant, we find that their greatest weapon, the very horn that defines their majesty, is also the source of their greatest tragedy. The greatest weapon in the African savanna is also its greatest curse. On the black market, a single rhinoceros horn can be worth more than its weight in gold, cocaine, or even diamonds. They call it black gold. But what exactly is this substance that men are willing to kill and die for? For centuries, myths have fueled a global obsession. In some cultures, it's believed to be a miracle cure for everything from fevers to cancer. In others, it's a symbol of extreme wealth and status, a trophy of the elite. But if you strip away the greed and the legends, you are left with a simple, biological truth. A rhino's horn is not bone. It is not a magical relic. It is keratin, the exact same protein that makes up your own hair and fingernails. Look inside, and you'll see one of nature's most brilliant engineering feats. The horn is grown from specialized skin cells on the rhino's snout. Millions of microscopic, hair-like tubules are compressed and cemented together, creating a structure that is harder than some woods. Unlike the horns of an antelope, which have a bony core, the rhino's horn is solid throughout. It is reinforced with calcium to make it rigid and melanin to protect it from the sun's degrading UV rays. And here is a paradox. It never stops growing. If a rhino survives a horn break in a territorial fight, the horn simply regenerates, growing several inches every year. It is a renewable resource of power, yet for the rhino, it has become a death warrant. This biological masterpiece has ignited an invisible war in the shadows of the wilderness. We are witnessing a high-tech battle for the survival of a species. On one side are the poachers, armed with high-caliber rifles and silencers. On the other are the guardians, rangers who spend months away from their families, patrolling thousands of acres of dangerous terrain. Drones with thermal imaging now scan the plains at night, looking for the heat signatures of intruders. DNA databases like RODIS now track every individual horn, allowing investigators to trace poached material back to the exact animal it was stolen from. The savanna has become a battlefield where ancient biology meets modern warfare. In a desperate move to save the species, some conservationists have turned to dehorning. They sedate the giant and carefully trim the horn, much like you would trim a fingernail. It doesn't hurt the animal, and it removes the incentive for poachers. It is a tragic sight, a king without its crown. But in a world gripped by greed, this is the price of survival. The rhino is forced to sacrifice its identity just to stay alive. Yet, despite the pressure, the spirit of the giant remains unbroken. They continue to shape the land, unaware that they are at the center of a global crisis. The war for the horn is a fight for the very soul of the wild. But behind the headlines and the statistics, there's a softer side to this armored beast. To truly understand why this animal is worth saving, we must look past the battlefield and into the intimate world of the rhino family. Because for a mother rhino, the horn isn't a trophy. It is the only thing standing between her calf and the jaws of a predator. In the theater of the wild, we often mistake armor for aggression. We see a 3-ton tank and assume it is a creature of pure violence. But beneath that impenetrable, 2-inch thick hide lies a surprising depth of emotion and social intelligence. This is the heart of the silent sentinel. The bond between a mother rhinoceros and her calf is one of the most formidable partnerships in nature. For 3 years, they are inseparable. This isn't just survival. It is a masterclass in legacy. She teaches the calf the language of the wind, the hidden locations of ancient watering holes, and the art of detecting danger long before it appears on the horizon. When a mother rhino stands over her sleeping calf, she is not just an animal. She is a fortress of living love, ready to defy any predator that dares to test her resolve. To our ears, the savanna is quiet. To the rhino, it is a symphony of data. These giants possess a secret communication network that human technology has only recently begun to decode. Beyond their audible huffs and grunts lies the world of infrasound, low-frequency vibrations that travel through the very ground itself. These sounds are below the threshold of human hearing, yet they can travel for miles, cutting through dense brush and vast plains alike. Through these subsonic pulses, rhinos can broadcast their identity, their mood, and their warnings across entire territories. They are never truly alone. They are connected by a subterranean conversation that has echoed through the valleys of Africa and Asia for millennia. They don't just walk on the earth, they speak through it. When the sun retreats and the world surrenders to shadows, the sentinel truly comes alive. The rhinoceros is a creature of the dusk. In the cool, silver light of the moon, their vulnerability to the heat vanishes, and they become the undisputed masters of the night. With eyes tuned to the darkness and a sense of smell that maps the world in 3 dimensions, they navigate the midnight landscape with confidence that few other creatures possess. It is in these quiet hours that the rhino shapes the world around it. They are megaherbivores, biological architects that maintain the balance of the grasslands. By grazing with surgical precision, they create lawns that allow smaller species to thrive. Without the sentinel, the savanna would lose its structure, becoming an overgrown wilderness where the delicate balance of life would slowly unravel. But even a sentinel can grow tired. The world is shrinking. The ancient paths they have walked for generations are being cut off by fences and fire. As the monarch of the plains stands in the fading light, it carries the weight of a 50-million-year-old history on its shoulders. The silence of the rhino is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of endurance. But even the strongest fortress has a breaking point. And as we move into the final chapter of their story, we must ask ourselves, what happens to the world when its oldest guardians are finally gone? We often talk about extinction as a distant event, something that happened to the dinosaurs millions of years ago. But in the 21st century, extinction has a face. It has a breath. It has a name. To understand the gravity of the rhinoceros legacy, we must look at the tragedy of the northern white rhino. When the last male, Sudan, breathed his last in 2018, a 50-million-year-old genetic line didn't just stop. It vanished into the silence of history. This is the extinction debt. It is the price humanity pays for its expansion. But how did the world's most successful living tank become so fragile? It wasn't a failure of evolution. The rhino was perfected for a world of predators, for ice ages, and for shifting tectonic plates. It was not, however, built for the industrial-scale greed of the modern age. Every time a rhino falls, the ecosystem loses a gear. The soil loses a gardener. The savanna loses its soul. We are currently standing on the precipice, watching the final titans walk toward a sunset that might never see a new dawn. But where nature ends, human ingenuity begins. We are no longer just observers of the rhino's decline. We are becoming the architects of their resurrection. In laboratories across Europe and Africa, a project of unprecedented scale is underway. It's called extinction. Scientists are using advanced stem cell technology to create embryos from the genetic material of northern white rhinos that have already passed away. These embryos are the last hope, the digital ghost of a species being brought back to physical reality. Imagine a world where we don't just protect what is left, but we bring back what was lost. This isn't science fiction. It is a desperate, multi-million-dollar race against time. We are attempting to use the same technology that built our modern world to repair the ancient one. However, technology alone isn't enough. A rhino in a lab is just a biological specimen. A rhino in the wild is a king. To truly save them, we have to save the land they walk on. We have to address the habitat fragmentation, the invisible walls of roads and cities that are suffocating the wild. The true front line of this war isn't in a lab, and it isn't always held by men with guns. It is held by the people who live alongside the giant. For decades, conservation was about fortress protection, building walls and keeping people out. But we've learned that a rhino is only as safe as a community that surrounds it. In places like Namibia and Kenya, a revolutionary shift is happening. Local tribes are now the primary shareholders in the rhino survival. When a rhino is worth more alive, through tourism and ecosystem health, than dead, the incentive for poaching evaporates. These communities have become the human armor for the living tank. They see the rhino not as a target, but as a brother, a protector of the soil, and a source of national pride. This is the ultimate evolution of conservation, a synergy between human progress and prehistoric survival. The true front line of this war isn't in a lab, and it isn't always held by men with guns. It is held by the people who live alongside the giant. For decades, conservation was about fortress protection, building walls and keeping people out. But we've learned that a rhino is only as safe as a community that surrounds it. In places like Namibia and Kenya, a revolutionary shift is happening. Local tribes are now the primary shareholders in the rhino survival. When a rhino is worth more alive, through tourism and ecosystem health, than dead, the incentive for poaching evaporates. These communities have become the human armor for the living tank. They see the rhino not as a target, but as a brother, a protector of the soil, and a source of national pride. This is the ultimate evolution of conservation, a synergy between human progress and prehistoric survival. So, we return to the question, why does the rhino matter? In a world of digital screens and artificial intelligence, why should we care about a gray, prehistoric giant in a distant land? We care because the rhino is a mirror. It reflects our own capacity for both destruction and preservation. If we can save a creature as massive and as vulnerable as a rhinoceros, we prove that humanity is capable of self-control. We prove that our power doesn't have to be a weapon of erasure, but a shield of protection. The rhino is a keystone species. If it falls, the arch of the savanna collapses. The birds lose their perches, the grass loses its gardener, and the earth loses its most resilient architect. Their footsteps are the heartbeat of the wild. Their heavy breath is a rhythm of history. As long as a living tank walks the earth, the spirit of the primordial world remains alive within us. We are the guardians of this legacy. We are the last line of defense for the last titans. The story of the rhino doesn't end here. It begins with you. Every voice that speaks for the wild, every heart that beats for the giants, is a brick in the fortress of their survival. The time for observation is over. The time for action is now. Subscribe to Wild Legacy to join our global mission to document and protect Earth's most incredible survivors. Hit the like button if you believe that a world without rhinos is a world not worth having. Comment Legacy below to show the world that you stand with the titans. Let the thunder of their footsteps never fade.